Hello, my name is Len David Livesey, and this is Knowledge from Beyond. And we have a very good show for you today. We're still doing our Halloween shows, and somebody is staring at me in the darkness. Who is that? We're talking today about the worldwide mystery of Bigfoot and Sasquatch. We're ready to get started. Let's get this ball rolling. Today this is what we're going over. This is what most people know about Bigfoot. This is the picture that everyone have seen before. This goes back only. People think this Bigfoot. A lot of people. The modern thing about Bigfoot is not even that old. It only goes back to 1967. I remember 1967. That is when this picture was taken. This is called the Patterson photo. Let me get rid of something so we can see more clearly. And this is what Bigfoot wasn't thought to be real until this picture was taken. And most of the time, when you talk about Bigfoot, it turns into an argument about this photo. Is this photo is real or not? Okay, and we're not going to go there because Bigfoot is not just something that exists ever since 1967. It's something that not only exists in the western part of the United States, it actually exists all over the world. And if this was just a local phenomena, is this was just caused because of somebody trying to, run around in a monkey suit or whatever? This phenomena would not be known all over the world. And, this is not just an American phenomena. This is a worldwide phenomena. And just like a lot of things, scientists have found evidence of this. Now, we have seen shows that talk about they have never found Bigfoot and whatever. We're going to show some pictures today. Some of these pictures are not the nicest pictures to show because these creatures have been captured. They have been killed. Okay. And that's what some people want to do. They want to actually put this creature on the endangered species list because a lot of people that go looking for them, what they want is something they can string up. And unfortunately, this is what have happened to several of these things. So let's get started today. Okay. So we're going to go all over the world. So where are we going from here? First, we're going to our first picture. And we're going to, where are we going? Oh, there he is in the woods. But let me play with my thing. There is dozens of names, but basically, Bigfoot is known by 10 different names, which is worldwide. There's dozens and dozens of names, which are just local names. But we're going to just go by the Big Ten names, go from there, and then we're going to introduce you to some of the local names that he's known by also. So let's go on and go forward. Oh my gosh, this is getting really big. Okay, so let's go further in this. Let's go to the next picture. And there we started over. What's wrong with this crazy thing? Okay, first we know Sasquatch. Now, Sasquatch is what a lot of people know him as, and this was his American Indian name. A lot of people in the West, when the settlers moved west, especially past the Mississippi River, is when not me, but a lot of the settlers that was exploring the West, when the West was opened up, came across the Indians talking about this creature. And they called it the Sasquatch. Okay. And this was the name that people ran into. And But the Sasquatch is not only found in on the Pacific coast. They can also have this creature is all over the place. And that's what we're going to be going over right now. So let's look at some stuff. Okay. We're going to advance our little slide a little bit more. And that is a big hairy beast right there. Now, the description of Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whatever you want to call him, varies all over the world. Okay. And a lot of people would say, but Len, this is just an ape type creature. The thing of it is that what separates him from ape is that apes basically have, they work in groups. We didn't even know about about the apes and, what we considered gorillas, the big gorillas in Africa until the 1920s and 30s. But Bigfoot is different from them because they use tools. They are a lot more advanced. Their posture is totally different. They actually have hands which are very similar to ours, and these creatures vary from actually being huge 10, 12 feet. Some of these things are actually our size. Some of them are actually smaller. It just depends on where you come from. But they seem to be, and what a lot of people think these things are, they seem to be an ancestor of man, is what a lot of people believe. Now, is this just Len Livesey saying this? No, because when you go back into the record, is that thing actually moving? When we go back into the record, we don't go back. Some of this goes all the way back to, I hate to say this, Sumerian texts. We always ended up back in Sumerian texts all the time. For some reason, we're always back in those Sumerian texts. Because the Sumerian texts, again, when they came here, they were dealing with the old ones. And then the old ones blasphemed against God. They was destroyed from the surface of the earth. Or what was the old ones? They had clover feet and leather skin, the dinosaurs. They chased them into their underground caves and was destroyed. And then they needed new workers because the Anunnaki refused to work because the work was extremely difficult. So they took a primitive primate creature and they started to experiment with these things. And they wanted to bring something that could do work into a limited thing. Here's another name for this creature, the Yeti, which is in the Himalayas and all of that area, which has a white coat. Okay. But we was talking about the Sumerian myth, and they took this primitive primate creature according to the Book of Enki and other sources. The creature that they was using was covered with hair. Okay. And they was doing things with this. So a lot of people, which have always been thought, even scientists agree on that. Because what a lot of people don't know about is between, smart man and animal man, they are very close. We are smart man, which is Homo sapien. But animal man, Cro-Magnon, there is no difference between Cro-Magnon and Homo sapien. Cro-Magnon is us as animal man, and Cro-Magnon is us as animal man, and Homo sapien is us as smart man. And when we look through the animal tree of the evolution of man, there is, when you look at the evolution of horses, you see a wave where horses have evolved like the evolution of dogs or cats. They varied all over the world and by time, but basically a cat is a cat is a cat. If you look all over the world, cats are similar. But when you look at this creature and us, there is a lot of similarity and a lot more similarity than it is within you're talking about between us and ape. Us and ape is not that similar. We do not eat food. No, apes are basically vegetarians and we are different. But when you look at this type of creature, its hunting habits, how it eats, how it use, things, this creature has been talked about not only in the Sumerian text, but here's another variation, the skunk ape, which is found in Florida. They've been talking about skunk apes ever since, this goes back even before the English was in Florida. The skunk ape goes all the way back when the Spanish was in Florida. Okay. And they was talking about this primate creature running around in the swamp. Okay, he's still down there. Okay. But back to what I was saying about this worldwide phenomena in ancient Chinese texts. They even talk about this creature, the Yeti, and what parts, the Chinese eat everything. They even talk about the Yeti, what parts of him can and cannot be eaten. Okay. I wouldn't recommend eating this thing. Okay. We need to take a lot of things off of the list of things you can eat. And why would you want to catch something that big and eat it anyway? According to Chinese, they want to eat certain parts because they believe certain parts, a lot of animals is medicinal. Okay. There's another name. This one is his name in Australia. Okay. These creatures have been around a very, very, very long time. But Lynn, you would say, if these creatures was around and been around a long time, wouldn't we know about it? Because people are everywhere. There's nowhere on the earth people don't live, right? That's not exactly true. Our earth is 70% water, 30% land. And on the 30% land that we live on, we only basically live on 1/3 of the land. Because we, unfortunately, are like cows. We like to herd. So we crowd ourselves all together in these mega cities, and we love to be close to water. So if you go around the coastline or if you go down rivers, the Nile, the Mississippi, you get along these creatures. I mean, you find our cities and everything. But once you get away from that, you start seeing a lot of things that is, that people don't know about. And back in the good old days, people would talk about what they came across, this and that and whatever, and we have name for that. Those are legends and folklore. People just like to make up things, you know how it is. But today, we have trail cameras, we got all kind of stuff. And since people now have cell phones and cameras been around for quite some time, people have taken pictures of all kind of things. Okay. And that is not an ape. There is differences between monkeys and apes and things like that. And what this creature is, the way it walks, the social behavior, everything, it is a cousin of man. is probably our primitive ancestor. Here's another name, Almas, which is in Mongolia. Okay. See. But we're only showing here the main names. But if you go all over the world, see, this is why I believe if something is real or not. Because, see, if you're going to make something up, you can make something up and it's very big or an urban legend in France or in England or whatever, or in a certain part of the world or in a certain village or in a certain region. But for something to be something called universal, where you go all over the world and people know about it. And today you're like, well, because we got TV. But when you're talking about in ancient times and in ancient texts and in writings and whatever, you can go and talk to people in the middle of the Amazon. They got a name for that half wow man that lives in the woods that nobody likes to mess with. Okay. Here's another one. The grass man. You're up in Ohio now. This goes back all the way back to when people first crossed into Ohio. This primitive creature. This is still around today, where people in Ohio and in other areas in Kentucky and Indiana talk about they hear noises in their cornfields at night. And they've been blaming this for at least 100, 200 years on, well, it must be a traveling circus passing through. And that's what we're hearing is the traveling circus animals. One of them must have got out, maybe a little chimp or whatever. No, 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 no. Okay. This been around a very long time. But we are very bothered and disturbed by things that we don't know about. We don't like it. And this is why I believe a lot of these animals need to be put on the endangered species list, because if we're not careful, this is what happens to things like that, unfortunately. Because we don't like to share our world. And we come across stuff and we know what to do. Okay. This is why a lot of things are hard to find. Because anything which is different, anything which is a threat, anything which bothers us or disturbs us or trespasses on our property or whatever, it's not going to make it. We are not very friendly. And scientists now know that there used to be other forms of humanoids on the earth, that was people like us, that was different. The most popular of them is Neanderthal. But we know now that as recently as 100,000 years ago, up to 75,000 years ago, some people believe up to 50,000 years ago, there was several different types of humans living on this planet. And we live together. Here we are in Canada now. This is not something that people go in the woods and they be doing these casting of a Bigfoot and everything and whatever. This is why we're not showing any casting of foot, because today is too easy. But since I say we're not going to talk about some casting of foot, let's talk about casting of foot. Now, people say this is what the people believe. They pour these casts and whatever. And people say, but Lynn, that's all fake. Somebody's going in the woods and they're just taking these modes and doing this. What people don't know, and probably you don't know, is that a foot is like a hand. And everybody's hand is different. The lines on the hands are all different. And this is why you can't identify people by their handprint or by their fingerprint. Here's another one. This is in Sumatra. When you look at a lot of these castings, they are not the same. The lines are different on each one. So this is not just a cast that people are making and got a single cast and they're sharing this cast. A lot of these casts of this giant footprint is unique and distinct. So if somebody is doing that, they are using, every time they do this, they actually set another, the casts are not different. Sometimes the foot is narrower, wider, and the lines or the pattern of on the foot is different. Also, the thing that has to do with these prints, which a lot of people believe, we have track dogs. We even found the skulls of some of this stuff. We know what primitive human skulls look like. This is not a primitive human skull. Doesn't go anywhere on our tree. Okay. But we have found all kind of stuff. But we was talking a minute ago before this picture came up and I got sidetracked on something that I see a lot of this stuff. The reason why they keep saying they can't find nothing, because they don't want to find anything. Because if they was to prove that Sasquatch or Bigfoot was real, we actually do a lot when we discover that there's a little fish or a butterfly and it's in danger, and we close off entire sections of land and wilderness because of that butterfly or that salamander or because of that frog or this or that. If we would announce that Bigfoot is real and there's only 300 or 500 of them left, we would have to close off giant pieces of land. And this is why no one wants to go there. Okay. South America now. And in South America, as I said, when you go throughout the Amazon, this is the main name. But different parts of South America, the name is different in different places. Okay. And this been going on, as I said, for a very, very, very long time. This just didn't start in 1967. Okay. Now, one thing I was mentioning earlier, today we got track, we have dogs now that they can track everything. And this is why, back in the good old slavery days, it was hard to run away because they had those bloodhounds and everything, and they could track you down. And it was very hard to throw out the trail of those bloodhounds. And we have tried everything to try to track down these creatures. And a lot of time their paths, it's not very easy. Here's another name. To track these animals. Some people believe that they have underground burrows that they go under, because you can be tracking the tracks and then they just end in the middle of a field, or they start in the middle of an area. They don't always do that, like a regular animal. Okay. So some people believe that they have underground burrows or they have a system of moving around which we're not actually acquainted with. Okay. And they try to, for their own preservation, they try to avoid us as much as possible because when we run into things, a lot of time, we're, as I said earlier, we're not the most friendliest of people out there. And we believe in shoot first, ask questions later. But a lot of time this gets into when people run into problems is when you're going to parts of the wilderness which have not been explored that much. See, this is what happens. These photographs are real. Very, very, very disturbing. This is what we do with anything we don't know and understand. This is why our alien friends have us on that list. The earth is under quarantine because we are considered extremely violent. Okay. We are not. We're even very violent to our own kind. We know what we'd like to do when we get something like that, or when there's a crash UFOs. We like to cut things up into pieces and see how they fit together. Okay, we're not trying to, share our world. We got this big giant world of ours. A lot of people, if they find out there's a new species of lobster or this or that or whatever, they're like, I wonder how that tastes. I would like to get that on the menu, especially in places like China and whatever. People like to eat exotic foods and exotic animals. Okay. This is big. And this animal is still around now that there's 7 billion of us, and people are now living all kind of places. You got that valley that no one ever been in before, and it's been sitting there for hundreds of years. Somebody's going to say, I want to build a house over there. And that's when you get into trouble because animals try to avoid us. But we keep moving into their territory. This is the problem that people are having today with black bears and things like that, and wolves and other animals. It's not that they're invading our areas, we're invading their areas because we believe that everything is our area. Okay, there is no sacred place that we're willing to fence off. And today, this thing of parks we do, which is a new concept in the history of the world. Here we go again. We love to string up things. Okay. Very, very disturbing. Now, this picture brings up something we're going to talk about next. Then this thing don't look dead. It looks alive. So have people ever caught a Bigfoot or one of these animals all over the world without killing it? Have that ever happened? Because this one definitely doesn't look dead. And you would say no, Lan, because if that was to happen, we would have proof. That is where you are totally wrong. Okay, and this is where we're going to go next. Let me scoot up a little bit more. We're going to scooting this way. Oh, we have another name. They're even in Scotland. Can you imagine? We are not very friendly. We are not very friendly at all. Okay. Now, sometimes we don't actually string everything up. Let's go a little bit further. Some of these pictures here in England, they talk about the green man. There's a wild man that lives in England. These things are everywhere. But let's talk about the time they have caught one of these things and they didn't kill it for once, which is very rare because we're very violent and we like to cut up things. Now, this is the one about the green man, what they say he looks like. He blends in with his surroundings in England, and it's very, very hard to see him. And that's the reason why that with this one, you could actually walk past one of these things, and if you're not paying attention, look at that. You wouldn't even know he's out there because animals in the woods try to avoid us. But we're going to go and take a break and talk about something very disturbing. Okay, here we go. An ape-like creature uh, that was caught in British Columbia, Canada. Okay, and they caught one of these things. This was back in 1884, and they actually imprisoned it in a rail car. Okay. See, these things can be captured. We have a little drawing of what it looked like, and this was written up in the paper in Canada. And they kept this thing for several days imprisoned in the train car, and they fed it. It wouldn't eat any meat. It only ate fruits and vegetables. And finally, it was super strong, and it broke out eventually and returned to the woods. This thing was very lucky that it didn't end up, stuffed and put in somebody's, oh my gosh. We need to change our ways very bad. Okay. Animals should be left alone. People see elephants and they say, oh, I like that elephant. I want to cut the head off and put it in or cut the tusk off. We don't like to leave nothing alone. We're terrible. Let's talk about another case, which is extremely disturbing. This is a true case. We're stopping here, and we're going to go into depth in this. The Russian ape lady. She was caught in the woods. This has been documented. Scientific evidence, everything. This proves 150% that these creatures are real. Let's go and we can read about her. Okay. That's another one that didn't make it. Let's go forward. Let's read about the ape lady in Canada. Okay. This is in Georgia. Not our Georgia, Russian Georgia, over there by the Caucasus, by the Black Sea. Okay. They captured a wild woman who had ape-like features, massive bosom, thick hair, arms, and fingers, and was covered with hair. This was in the 1800s. Okay, this is real. They have documentation for this, everything. We'll show that later. Let's go to the next slide. We're over here. Okay. The wild woman named Zana by her captive was so violent that she had to spend years in a cage. And they fed her by food. Eventually, they domesticated her, and she could perform simple tasks. But she loved the cold, and she would not be in a heated room. Okay. Let's go forward. She was, that's her name, as we said before, Zana. And They actually, this lady would not wear clothes. Okay. And she was known in the village. She actually, somebody even married her. Why? Okay. To marry a lady that's covered in hair, I guess, you know, and they even had Russian medical people to look at her and everything, and they thought she was a throwback to the Neanderthals. They didn't have cameras in Russia back in the 1850s, but they do have drawings of her and everything. This is a representation of what it was like when she would work. She had worked in the village, and the kids would taunt her a lot. She was covered with hair. She would not wear clothes. That's that, you know, and she could not really speak that well. She grunted a lot. These little wild people, wild kids, they've been captured several times. So, uh, she was described between something between a human and an ape. She had a degree of intelligence, uh, but she could never develop how to speak and social skills. Okay, but she could do basic labor. Okay, and as I said, she was married. Somebody married her. So I guess, okay. So here's a description of her again and the whole 9 yards. And she was super, super strong. Super strong. And her toes was not like that of human. She could spread her toes and she had massive feet. Everything was very massive about this lady. And she had kids. As we talked about before, the biggest problem that she was unwilling to wear clothes. Okay. And she had kids. We talked about that. Now, some of her kids lived to the point where photography is still around. And this is a picture of some of her kids. Okay. And some of her relatives still live in Russia today. So this is a true case. So they don't show what her husband looked like. He must have been, you know. See, even Russian, here's a Russian zoologist who examined her. There's another one. This Russian, they caught another one. This was back in 1941. They caught another one. See, this is still happening today. Now, you would think if we're still capturing these creatures, at least over there, see, this is why we need to make these animals protected, because this one, like with the lady who got captured, her family was probably wiped out. This one too. This is why they just were able to capture the kids. These things are going to be extinct very, very rapidly. Okay. And there's stories of not only about the one that was captured in Canada, about the one that was captured in Russia. This is what they believe is the ancestor of where these ape-like creatures come from. Science have found the remains of this ape, primitive ape-type creature. But this ape-like creature, is not is more like human than more like ape. But this is an extinct creature now. But they believe this is where this thing is evolving from. But because it has the features of a man, from the skeletal, the remains they have found of this thing. And this is one of the what they believe this creature looked at like that lived long time ago. Okay, and this is the name of it here at the bottom. I don't if you can see that, but this is what they believe that this ancestor that this these ape type creatures that exist all over the world is a is one of the branches of man that we you know which uh is we're like a cousin. Unfortunately, this is the remains of one that people believe was caught in 2008 in the United States. He didn't turn out too well because, as I said, we are extremely violent. Okay. This, unfortunately, is probably how a lot of these creatures end up. Because we don't want to study anything. We don't want to, we don't like things in the wild. We like to capture things and put it in zoos and whatever. We we're going to take a diversion right now. If we can't even be nice to something which is one step away from us, and we're treating it like this, I ain't even going into slavery and what happened in World War II and all the massacres and over the centuries and all this stuff and what happened to the indigenous people of the Americas and whatever. We could go on and on for the next 2 hours. The problem is, how can we ever leave our blue marble if we're going to act the way we're acting? If we ever came across any type of life on Europa or on some satellite, let's say we went to Alpha Centauri and we discovered some little creature or something. Oh, everybody on the Earth would want to have one in a jar. Okay. Or we could make zoos out of the creature. We really going to have to change the way we are. Because there's an old saying, what goes around comes around. And in America, up until the 1950s, they had human zoos in the United States. Most people are not aware of that. And they would get people from Africa and people from Southeast Asia and people, indigenous people from all over the world. And one of the biggest one of these zoos was the Bronx Zoo in New York City. They had a human exhibit. Are we going to do this to the aliens we come across? Stick them in little zoos and everybody can come and throw them peanuts and everything? Oh my gosh. We need to do better. Okay. There is no more. We have a show on TV to talk about finding Bigfoot. They say they can't find anything. And they see, oh, there's a broken branch. Oh, there's a hair. There's this all over the world. People have limbs, they have heads, they have pictures of things that are strung up. We're not talking, this is 2020. We have solid evidence that things are out there. Not only from the United States, from all over the world, people have seen things. Okay. And there's reports that not only have these things gotten violent in the United States, where they have attacked, cabins and whatever, and going back to Russia, they even back one time had to send in the military because these things was attacking and killing people, and they sent in the military. This was back, uh, back in the Tsar's time. They had problem with these creatures. Okay, but these creatures are not doing anything. They're only trying to survive in the little area. We keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. And eventually they have nowhere else to go. We need to share our world. This is an error that is in the Bible. Oops, I'm saying it on live TV. There's errors in the Bible. Yes. It says that man was given dominion of the earth. That is a mistranslation. We was never given dominion of the earth. We was given stewardship of the earth. That word was switched. Stewardship, dominion is the same thing. No, it is not. Dominion means it's your property. You can do whatever in the hell you want to do with it. Stewardship means you are legally responsible. This is reason the Bible says those who destroy the earth will themselves be destroyed. We are legally responsible for this planet. Okay. Boy, we're going to have a lot of explanation. Some people know about this. This is why people keep saying it's this secret cabal about how they're going around the world and they're setting up these national parks and doing all this stuff and whatever. Oh, it's no secret cabal because we've been in contact with those alien friends of ours, and we know we're in big trouble. And this is why every president, going back to Teddy Roosevelt all the way up till today, have every president have set large sections of land and things aside as parks or parks or this or that or everything, and in large section of the ocean where we're not supposed to go. Every president have done this except for one. Okay. Trump never did any of this. And Trump tried to break and tried to take some land that is now national parks and tried to privatize it. That did not go through. But the reason why every president, and not only in the United States, all over the world, in Africa, Asia, all over the place, people are setting lands aside that is now no-go areas for us. Why is this a worldwide movement? Because we are heading into the new age. And we know that part of the new age is that we need to fix the problem that we started. Okay. Because the earth belongs to three people. The earth is 1/3 man. 1/3 of the earth belongs to the animals, and 1/3 of the earth belongs to nature. Is an animal and nature the same? No, because the earth needs to recharge itself. Okay, this is why there's places like mountaintops and waterfalls and all this stuff, and the earth has to have a way of recharging. Okay. And we come across these places, these Mongol forests and all this stuff and these wetlands, and we just a lot of cities, Houston, Miami, New Orleans, a lot of cities are on wetlands that was drained so we could build a city. Even large sections of New York City, Manhattan especially, is on land that was drained. That's the reason the Indians, didn't really do anything with the island of Manhattan. It was just a swampland. Okay. And this is why when we have hurricanes today, they are so destructive because we don't have what is called those wetlands anymore. Okay. The earth is a living organism. We have to let it breathe and survive. And for the animals to survive, we have to let this is why up until modern times you only had extinction of animals when you had catastrophic events over the earth. Okay. But now, which is something new, animals are going extinct because they're being hunted out of extinction. You didn't have this problem with the American Indians. You didn't have this problem with indigenous people basically all over the world because they only take what they need. Today, anything which is different or weird or we don't understand or we see a threat, this is why when we moved into the Ohio Valley and other places, we eliminated the dodo birds. We eliminated anything which we don't share our land. This is why today they're reintroducing wolves and reintroducing all kind of animals to try to get everything back in balance again. And you cannot take a little tiny section and say, okay, we're keeping the big piece of the pie. We're going to take that little tiny piece and let that go back. We're going to have to do a lot of work. Now, to me, there is evidence from all over the world that these creatures exist. There's not too many of them left. We have killed and hunted and destroyed 99% of them. This was the same thing we did with the indigenous people of the United States. Of the few that are still out there, we need to leave them alone and let them live in peace. They're not bothering nobody. Okay. And if we want to see what these things look like, yes, we can set up trail cameras and this and that and all kind of stuff. And we can do expeditions to, so we can count them and this and that. But we don't need to be stringing them up and cutting their heads off and doing this and that. And oh my gosh. Okay. We need to stop. We need to grow up. Okay. But there's not many of these creatures left. And like we did with so many animals in the Americas, like wolves and and leopards and most things, we totally wiped out. And now we're slowly trying to reintroduce them. Let the few of these creatures, I believe they are our cousins, animal man. They're descendants of Cro-Magnon. They did not make the leap from animal man to smart man. But we didn't make the leap either. The only reason we are who we are today is because we was tampered with. Okay. So this is probably what we was like before we was tampered with. Okay. And most of these things, just like they talk about primitive man, are probably hunter gatherers. They just live in the woods and they hunt and gather what they need. This is what we need to do. Okay. And when we leave this blue ball of ours, we need to go exploring. And if we want to go hunting with cameras, we can go hunting all we want. But Bigfoot is a worldwide phenomena, and there is no more thinking that this is fairy tale. We have proof. But in America, people find that hard to believe. So anything which is different or weird, we must eliminate and destroy. Okay. So now you know. And this is why, as I said, several of these creatures has been captured. Okay. Unfortunately, back in the 1800s, some of these things ended up in zoos. Okay. Very sad. How would you feel if somebody captured you and you ended up on reticuli in a zoo and say, "Ooh, look at that. There's a human. Ooh." Okay. Not very funny. But Bigfoot is real. Sasquatch is real. It is not a fictional animal. It is animal man. What we were before we was tinkered and played with. And the only reason they converted us from animal man to smart man is because they needed a worker. They needed a slave. Okay. Let these things be free and happy. My name is Lynn David Livesey. I'm your full spectrum Gnostic. We have to move beyond this third dimensional thinking and get into fourth and fifth dimensional thinking, or we will not survive. Okay. I want you to have we're going into Halloween. I'm going to have a few more of these shows. Okay. About strange things. There's so much strange stuff out there. I hope you enjoyed what I showed you today. And you need to share this, this podcast. Watch the other shows on the Spirit Realm Network. There's so much stuff out there we don't know. We think we know and understand everything. We know so little. I'm trying to comprehend and understand. You can join this quest. My name is Lynn David Livesey, your full spectrum Gnostic. Good night, and I want you to have a wonderful, the wonderful rest of your day. And knowledge doesn't stop once you get out of school. Knowledge is something that you should do for your entire life. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to see everybody again very soon. Bye.